My father's birthday was perfect, until my daughter looked up at me with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "Let's get out of here, please." It was supposed to be a warm family celebration. Balloons dancing in the breeze, champagne flutes clinking under fairy lights, and laughter echoing through the garden. But as we walked toward the car, I noticed how tightly my daughter clutched my hand, like she was trying to hold onto something that was slipping away. What she told me during that silent drive home shattered everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me. You won't believe what a father and an ex-husband are capable of until it's your child begging you to leave your own father's birthday party. I used to love the smell of lilacs. They reminded me of simpler times, childhood summers when my father, Martin, would take me to the farmer's market and buy a bouquet just because I liked the color. But on his 67th birthday, the scent was suffocating. We were in his backyard in suburban Connecticut, surrounded by neighbors and old family friends, all laughing, all sipping from glittering glasses like life had no sharp edges. I stood beneath a white canopy strung with tiny gold lights, holding a flute of Prosecco and smiling the way a daughter is supposed to. Next to me, my mother Helen fluttered between guests, her signature lemon tart making rounds on a ceramic tray. My father was beaming, his usual stiff charm replaced with genuine glee. It had been years since I'd seen him like that, maybe ever, and then I saw him, Derek, my ex-husband, laughing a little too loudly near the bar, a hand resting lightly on a woman's bare shoulder. I recognized her vaguely, someone from town council meetings. Her red dress clung to her like an afterthought. And Derek, he looked relaxed in that smug way he always did when he thought he was winning something. The way my stomach twisted told me everything. I wasn't okay, he wasn't even invited, or so I thought. I hadn't seen him in months, and we only spoke about our daughter, Lily. Civil, cold, necessary, so why was he here? My fingers tightened around the glass stem. I told myself to stay calm. Not here, not in front of everyone. I scanned the party for Lily. She'd been playing near the koi pond with her cousins earlier, her new dress dotted with strawberries. She loved that dress. Said it made her feel bouncy. And then I saw her standing at the edge of the lawn alone. Her shoulders were shaking. I rushed to her, instincts kicking in. "Lily," I crouched down, gently turning her toward me. Tears were slipping down her cheeks silently. No sobs, no tantrum, just quiet, deliberate crying. "Let's get out of here, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mom, please." I stood up instantly, my heart pounding. Okay, sweetheart." I didn't ask questions. Not yet. As I led her away, I caught a final glimpse of Derek, now with my father, laughing together, like old friends, like they'd rehearsed this. A knot formed in my chest. Something was very, very wrong. I kissed my father goodbye on the cheek and forced a smile. "Lily's tired, we're heading home." He gave me that patronizing look he always did when he didn't believe me but pretended to. "Of course, drive safe." Lily squeezed my hand tighter. In the car, I glanced at her through the rearview mirror. She was staring out the window, her lips trembling. I wanted to ask what happened, but her eyes said not yet. So I drove, the cake, the laughter, the lights. They all stayed behind us. What I didn't know then was that I had just walked out of my father's birthday party and straight into a war I never saw coming. The drive home felt like gliding through fog. The streetlights blurred through the windshield, and the once familiar roads felt suddenly foreign. I kept my eyes forward, my hands on the wheel, even though all I wanted was to turn around and hold her. Lily hadn't spoken a word since we left the party. The silence was unnatural. She usually hummed to herself or asked questions about every little thing. But tonight, she was staring out the window as if the darkness outside offered more comfort than I did. I couldn't take it anymore. "Lily," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Did something happen back there?" She didn't respond right away. Just when I started to wonder if I should let it go for the night, her voice emerged, fragile like paper about to tear. "I heard Grandpa and Daddy talking," she said. "Behind the hedge, they didn't know I was there." My fingers clenched the steering wheel. "What did they say?" She hesitated. "They were talking about me, about how I'd be better off living with Daddy, that maybe it was time to make it happen." The words hit me like a slap. I blinked hard, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "What do you mean, make it happen?" "They said you're too emotional and that the court would believe it if Daddy told them you're unstable. Grandpa said he could help make it look that way." I had to pull over. My head was spinning. We stopped at a quiet intersection beneath a flickering street lamp. I turned in my seat to face her. "Sweetheart, are you sure that's what you heard?" Her eyes filled again. They said I wouldn't have to move right away, but that it would be better for everyone if I lived with Daddy. And Grandpa said, if you didn't agree, they had a deal that might make you change your mind. A deal? My voice cracked. What kind of deal? I don't know, Lily whispered, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. They stopped talking when someone came by. But Mommy, her lower lip trembled. I don't want to live with Daddy. I don't want to leave you. I reached back and unbuckled her seatbelt just enough to pull her into my arms. She melted into me, clutching my blouse with her small fingers. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly terrified. Not the everyday anxiety of bills or deadlines or parenting solo. This was something deeper, a primal fear. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about Derek being a manipulative ex-husband, or my father, Martin, being distant and judgmental. This was a calculated plan. A betrayal so complete, so carefully constructed, that it took my breath away. I had spent years crawling out of the ruins Derek left behind, and I'd clung to the one thing they couldn't take from me, my daughter. Now, even that felt uncertain. As we drove the rest of the way home, Lily's breathing slowed against my shoulder, and I wished I could offer her more than soft promises whispered into the dark. At home, I tucked her into bed, brushing the hair from her forehead. She looked so small in that moment, so vulnerable. Can I sleep with the nightlight on? She asked. Of course. I closed the door gently, then stood alone in the hallway. My heart beat like a drum against my ribs, but my hands were still. There are moments when your life divides into two parts, before and after, and I had just crossed the line. After I closed Lily's door, the silence in the house wasn't comforting. It was echoing, mocking. Every creak of the old floorboards felt louder than it should. Every shadow stretched longer than it had any right to. I moved mechanically through the motions, locking doors, dimming lights, until I found myself in the master bathroom, the only place I could fall apart without an audience. I turned on the faucet, more for the noise than the water, and stared into the mirror above the sink. The woman looking back at me didn't feel familiar. Pale, tired, her dark hair a little too frizzy at the ends, lips tight from holding too much in. There were lines around her eyes that I didn't remember being there last year, or maybe they'd been waiting, like bruises under the surface, until tonight made them real. I pressed both palms to the countertop and leaned in. You're not allowed to fall apart, I whispered to her. You're all she has. But my voice cracked anyway. I thought about what Lily said, about the deal and their plan. The words looped in my head like static, warping every memory I had of my father and Derek. Suddenly, birthday hugs and clinking glasses felt staged. The warmth of the party curdled into a performance I'd unknowingly participated in. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I did what I always do when I'm unraveling. I locked the door, and I sat on the cold tile floor. There, with my back pressed against the tub and my arms wrapped around my knees, the memories came without mercy. I remembered the day I found the text messages. Derek had left his phone on the counter, and my thumb moved before my brain told it to stop. A dozen messages from a woman named Trina. Photos, plans, promises he never made to me. I remembered the way he tried to turn it on me. Said I'd driven him away with my neediness and mood swings. The way he sat smugly in court, painting me as emotional, unstable, unfit, because I cried when my marriage fell apart, because I was honest about needing help, because I had feelings. I lost everything in that divorce. The house, the savings, my sense of self, everything except Lily. She had been my one victory, my one tether to purpose. When the judge gave me primary custody, I thought, they can't touch us now. But I was wrong. I had let my guard down. I had believed that Derek would eventually fade into the background, that my father, cold as he could be, would never betray me in the most intimate way. And now, they were colluding. I looked around the bathroom, the gray tile, the little ceramic dish with lavender soaps, the towel Lily folded yesterday with the ends sticking out unevenly. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, our home, the place where she felt safe. And now it felt like it was made of glass, shatterable at any moment. Outside, I heard the faint tapping of rain begin against the windows. The soft patter quickly turned insistent, as if the world outside was echoing the storm inside me. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually the faucet stopped dripping. My body ached from the cold tile. My legs were numb. I pulled myself up slowly, unlocked the door. The hallway was quiet. Lily hadn't stirred. I walked past the family photos lining the wall. Derek wasn't in any of them anymore. I'd replaced every frame. But now I wondered, had I only erased the image while the threat stayed behind? In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and stared out at the rain-soaked yard. The garden lights flickered in the wind. I could feel it now. This wasn't just another petty scheme. This was war. Quiet, strategic, dressed in the illusion of concern, but war all the same. And they had underestimated me. They thought I was still the woman who begged for scraps in court, who broke down when she lost half of her life. But that woman, she didn't survive the past 4 years to be taken down now. I touched my lips, then whispered into the glass, "Not this time." 4 days passed before I could gather the courage to face my parents again. I didn't tell Lily where I was going, just said I needed to run an errand and that Monica would be here in case she needed anything. She nodded, clutching her drawing pad like a life raft. The drive to my parents' house was short, too short. Each mile peeled at my nerves like someone methodically unwrapping something fragile. I rehearsed what I would say in my head again and again. I'd tell my father I knew, that Lily heard everything, that it wasn't going to happen, not on my watch. But as I pulled into their gravel driveway, I felt that familiar chill. The one that used to creep in during my teenage years whenever I knew a conversation was about to turn into a lecture. The house looked exactly the same. Gray shingles, dark green shutters, a flagstone path edged with Helen's hydrangeas. Peaceful, deceiving, I rang the bell even though I still had a key. A small rebellion, my mother opened the door. "Julia," she said, a little too surprised. "You should have called. I needed to talk to Dad." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "He's in the kitchen." The scent of cinnamon and chamomile filled the house, her usual afternoon tea. Everything felt normal. It made me want to scream. Martin sat at the kitchen table, reading the Wall Street Journal. His glasses rested low on his nose. The sight made my stomach knot. "You're here," he said, folding the paper. "Is Lily all right?" "She's fine. She told me what she overheard." His face didn't flinch, not even a flicker of surprise. "She misunderstood." "No, she didn't," I said, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. "She heard you and Derek talking about taking her from me. She heard you say you'd help make it happen." Martin stood slowly, smoothing his sweater. "Julia, no one is trying to take your child. We're concerned. That's not a crime." "Concerned?" I laughed bitterly. "Concerned enough to weaponize a custody case, to plot behind my back with him. I happen to believe Derek has grown. He has resources, stability. And I don't." My voice cracked. He didn't answer. "After everything Derek put me through, you're siding with him, you're helping him." Martin crossed his arms. "You're exhausted, Julia, emotional. This obsession with control, it's not healthy. Maybe it's time to ask whether Lily's best interests are really being served." I turned to my mother, who had been standing near the counter, holding her mug like a shield. "Helen," I said, using her name because Mom felt too intimate for this moment, "do you agree with him?" She looked down at the tea in her hands. Maybe Lily needs balance. You've been so overwhelmed lately." That did it. The last illusion shattered. "So your version of balance is Derek getting custody and me getting what? Visitation on alternate weekends?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You'd give my child to the man who lied, cheated, and made me feel like I was losing my mind?" "Enough," Martin snapped, his tone that cold, clipped one I'd known since I was 8. "You're spiraling again, Julia. This is exactly the kind of behavior that concerns us." I stared at them. At the granite countertops, the polished oak cabinets, the dish towel with lemons embroidered on it, everything was tidy. But the family that lived here, rotten. I came here hoping for a sliver of decency, for my parents to act like they care more about their granddaughter's well-being than their outdated loyalty to a charming sociopath. No one spoke. I stepped back. My chest was heaving. "I'm leaving. Don't contact me unless it's to apologize. And if Derek files anything in court, I will fight." I turned to leave, but just as I reached the doorway, Martin said behind me, "You always did love playing the victim." I paused but didn't look back. Victim? No, that version of me died the day Lily was born. Now I was something else entirely. It came on a Thursday. The mail had been sitting on the hallway table all morning. I had walked past it twice, too distracted to sort through the usual collection of flyers and bills. It wasn't until I went looking for Lily's field trip form that I noticed the thick white envelope with my name printed in bold type, "No return address." The minute I saw the gold court seal, my stomach dropped. I stood there, frozen, the edges of the envelope digging into my fingertips. I didn't need to open it to know what it was, but I did. And then the world tilted. Petition for full custody, filed by Derek Allen Foster. The air vanished from the hallway. My knees buckled and I sank onto the floor, the pages falling around me like broken wings. He did it. He actually did it. The walls seemed to close in as I scanned the pages. He was citing concerns for emotional stability, lack of financial preparedness, and this one nearly made me laugh through the tears: parental alienation. My hands trembled. He even included screenshots of my private social media posts, selectively chosen to paint me as unstable. A late-night tweet from last year: being a single mom is crushing sometimes. A photo of Lily sleeping next to me on the couch with the caption, "She's the only reason I'm still standing." Twisted, weaponized, I stayed on the floor until the sunlight shifted, until my legs went numb. Eventually, I forced myself up and began pulling folders from the bookshelf. My old divorce attorney moved out of state. The family law contact my friend Monica had once recommended, fully booked. I made call after call. I left voicemails, sent desperate emails. Some offices replied politely. Unfortunately, our current caseload doesn't allow for expedited custody proceedings. Others weren't so gentle. A case like this, with that kind of timeline, honestly, you should have come to us weeks ago. Weeks ago, as if I had the luxury of preparation, as if betrayal ever sends a calendar invite. By nightfall, my living room looked like a war room. Lily's watercolor paintings were pinned between legal documents and custody laws printed from questionable websites. I sat cross-legged in the middle of it all, highlighter in one hand, cold coffee in the other. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual. I hadn't realized it was nearly midnight. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and stopped on Monica's name. My wild-hearted, brilliant best friend. I hadn't told her yet. I couldn't. Not until I had something to say that didn't sound like desperation. I closed my eyes and let the phone drop back onto the floor. Upstairs, Lily was sleeping, peaceful, innocent, and I felt like a failure. Not because of what Derek was doing, but because, for the first time, I truly didn't know how to stop him. The system didn't care about nuance. It cared about documentation, money, performance, and Derek, he had all three. I only had the truth. And a terrifying sense that the truth might not be enough this time. Courtrooms have a smell: stale paper, old wood, nervous sweat. It hit me the moment I stepped inside. I clutched my tote bag like it could shield me, but nothing could dull the feeling of being hunted. Derek was already there. He sat on the other side of the courtroom, calm as a lake in winter. His lawyer, a sleek, unnaturally blonde woman in a blazer that probably cost more than my car, leaned over to whisper something that made him smirk. That smirk. I took a seat, heart hammering against my ribs. My attorney, if you could even call her that, was a last-minute referral. Kind, but unprepared. She had warned me during our 5-minute hallway briefing. We'll do our best today, but don't expect miracles without more time. Time, the one thing I never seemed to have. The judge entered, stern and unreadable. The kind of man who probably drank black coffee and never once raised his voice because he didn't have to. His gavel hit the block like thunder. "Ms. Rowe," he said, glancing at me, "you are representing yourself?" "No, Your Honor," I said quickly, gesturing to my attorney. "Ms. Keller is here on my behalf." He nodded and turned toward Derek's side. They launched first. Their case was tidy, practiced, slick. Derek's lawyer painted him as a stable, responsible father with a flexible work schedule and a strong support system. She mentioned my emotional inconsistency, cited my brief employment gap last year, and this one nearly made me laugh, suggested Lily was anxious at home. I wanted to stand up and scream. She's anxious because her father is trying to take her from me. When it was our turn, my attorney did what she could with what little I had handed her. She emphasized that I had primary custody, that Lily had never expressed a desire to leave, that I was a full-time parent doing my best. But without time to prepare, it all sounded like pleading. I was pleading. When I was finally allowed to speak, I looked straight at the judge. "Your Honor, my daughter is my entire world. She's happy at home. I've done everything I can," he cut me off gently. "Thank you, Ms. Rowe. We'll take that into consideration." And just like that, the proceedings ended. No jury, no final arguments, just a handful of words exchanged that would decide the rest of my life. When the judge delivered his ruling, the room went still. Temporary full custody granted to Derek. Pending further review, I didn't hear the rest. The words blurred. My chest tightened and I could feel myself sinking. Derek didn't look at me as he stood and shook his lawyer's hand. I stayed seated. Numb, I had just lost the most important thing in my world. Not forever, they said. But I didn't trust that anymore. Nothing feels temporary when it steals your breath. The first Sunday without Lily was unbearable. I woke up at 6 a.m. like I always did, half expecting to hear the shuffle of her slippered feet on the hallway floor. But the silence stretched on, so complete it felt cruel. Her room was untouched. I had left her bed made, her favorite plush bear tucked under the blanket like I was preserving a moment I wasn't ready to release. I tried to eat. Toast burned, coffee went cold. Work called that morning. "Natalie," my manager's voice crackled through the line, "we've been patient, but this is the third week you've called out. We can't hold your position much longer." "I understand," I said automatically, but I didn't understand, not really. I had been trying to hold myself together piece by piece, but my grip was slipping. By the end of that week, my job was gone. My inbox held the termination notice, my health insurance, my routine. My last shred of normalcy, all gone in a sterile digital letter. I stared at my screen for a long time after that, and then, without even realizing, I started cleaning, scrubbing baseboards, reorganizing the fridge, folding and re-folding laundry that didn't need touching, anything to fill the space, anything to avoid thinking. My phone stayed silent. My parents hadn't called since the court hearing. Neither had Derek, aside from a brief text confirming Lily's Sunday drop-off time, 3 p.m. sharp. That was it, no updates, no photos, no reassurance that my daughter was okay. The loneliness pressed in. And then Monica. She showed up on a Tuesday night, uninvited, carrying Thai takeout in one hand and a bottle of sparkling lemonade in the other. Her hair was in its usual messy bun, and her eyeliner was somehow flawless. "I'm not letting you rot in here," she said, pushing past me. "You're coming to my place tomorrow. No excuses. I'm setting up my blog photos and I need a tragic, beautiful muse. That's you, by the way." I tried to smile, but it didn't reach. We sat on the floor, eating silently from cardboard containers. The room still smelled like lavender cleaner and dust. "You okay?" she finally asked. "No," I whispered. "I lost everything." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You lost a round, not the war." I blinked at her. Monica had this fire, like nothing could knock her down for long. She once got dumped on her birthday and turned it into a viral blog post called "How to Be the Main Character at Your Own Funeral." But tonight her voice was softer. No sarcasm, just a quiet kind of strength. "You're not alone, Jules. I know it feels like you are, but you're not." I nodded, but tears blurred my vision. I didn't want to be pitied. I didn't want pep talks. I just wanted Lily back. It started with a headline. I was brushing my teeth, sleep-deprived and hollow, when Monica's text lit up my phone. "Monica, hey, please don't freak out, but something happened." Before I could reply, another ping came in. "Monica, your story is going viral." I blinked at the screen, toothpaste dripping down my chin. I tapped the link she sent. There it was on her blog, The Back Alley Brew, a space she usually filled with quirky breakup advice and messy apartment tour. But this post was different. Title: What Happens When a Mother Loses Her Child to a Lie. I froze. The photo at the top was a silhouette me, sitting on my porch at dusk, head in my hands. Monica had taken it last week while I was lost in thought, never telling me what it was for. The words below hit like a punch. She wrote about me, not just my custody battle, but the betrayal, the isolation, the system that chose polished appearances over quiet truth. She didn't use real names. She didn't have to. Her words were raw. Furious, beautiful. She called me a mother made invisible by the people who should have protected her. By noon, the post had been shared over 10,000 times. By sunset, it had over 50,000 views. Monica's inbox exploded. So did mine. Strangers were reaching out. Women, men, grandparents, all of them with stories, some worse, some eerily similar. And then Derek called. I saw his name flash on my screen. I let it ring. Then he texted. "Derek, what the hell did you do?" "Derek, you think airing our private life online makes you look sane?" "Derek, you just made it worse for yourself. You want to play games? Fine, but Lily is off limits." I stared at his messages until they blurred. He was spiraling, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. Monica showed up that night, all nerves and pacing. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you, but you were crumbling, and I couldn't just sit there watching it happen." "I didn't ask for this," I whispered. "I know. But the world needed to see it." And then I snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I shouted. "This isn't a blog story. This is my child. You just poured gasoline on everything." Monica's mouth opened, then closed. "I was trying to help," she said, voice small. "You were drowning." "I am drowning," I said. "And now you've just painted a target on my back. Derek is threatening me. What if he pulls visitation?" She reached for me. I stepped back. "I need space," I said. "Please." And for the first time in years, Monica walked out of my house without saying a word. I stood in the doorway after she left, the night air sharp against my skin. For once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like fallout. 3 days. That's how long it had been since Monica left and the blog post exploded. 3 days of silence between us. 3 days of checking my phone obsessively, half expecting Derek to file a restraining order or worse, cut off my Sundays with Lily entirely. But none of that happened. Instead, on the third morning I found something else. Buried between promotional spam and online bill reminders was an email with the subject line, "Regarding your custody case, pro bono inquiry." I clicked, heart racing. "Dear Ms. Rowe, we recently came across a public article referencing your family law situation. While the names were anonymized, certain details and shared contacts have led us to believe you may be the individual in question. We are a collective of attorneys who specialize in family and judicial reform cases. Our team includes former prosecutors, family court veterans, and legal ethics investigators. If you are open to a conversation, we would like to offer you a free consultation. We believe your case may involve judicial irregularities. Sincerely, the Leon Initiative Legal Alliance." I read it twice. Then a third time. Judicial irregularities? My fingers hovered over the reply button. Was this real? Was this a trap? I had nothing left to lose but everything to hope for. I typed back one word. Yes. The next morning, I found myself on a video call with a man named Peter Leon, a sharp-eyed lawyer in his 60s with a calming voice and the kind of demeanor that made you believe he'd never lost a case he truly cared about. He didn't waste time. "We've reviewed the case filings publicly available online," he said, adjusting his glasses. "There are things that don't add up. Specifically, the speed of the temporary custody ruling and the judge's prior relationship with your ex-husband's legal counsel." I blinked. "Wait, what relationship?" "Your judge, Thomas Belgrave, used to work at a firm that handled your ex-husband's company affairs. That attorney of his, Natalie Gray, she was his mentee for 3 years. That's a direct conflict of interest, and none of it was disclosed." I leaned forward, breath caught in my throat. "So, what does that mean?" "It means," Peter said slowly, "we have grounds to reopen everything." I didn't cry, not right away. I just sat there, stunned, as the pieces began to realign. He kept talking about affidavits, about motions to vacate, about public interest appeals. But all I could hear was the sound of a door creaking open again. By the end of the call, they had scheduled an in-person meeting at their Manhattan office. Full strategy session. Pro bono representation confirmed. I was shaking when I hung up. I sank to the floor, laughing and crying all at once. Not because it was over, far from it, but for the first time in weeks I felt something I hadn't dared let myself feel. Hope. That afternoon, I drove to Lily's school. It was my Sunday visit. She spotted me through the car window and ran, her pigtails flying behind her like little flags of freedom. I opened the door and she launched into my arms. "Mommy," she whispered, burying her face into my neck. "You feel like home." I held her tighter than ever. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was falling apart. I felt like I was coming back together. The offices of the Leon Initiative sat 12 floors above Manhattan's clamor, sleek and sunlit, far removed from the fluorescent flicker of the courthouse halls I'd come to dread. Peter Leon met me in the lobby, flanked by 2 women I'd only met through email. Ava, a litigation specialist with ice blonde hair and a voice like a cello, and Deendra, a research investigator who could pull the tax records of a judge's cousin in less time than it took to drink a coffee. They didn't smile much. They didn't make small talk. But for the first time, I didn't need comfort. I needed results. "We filed the first motion to vacate the temporary custody order," Peter said as we entered a sleek glass conference room. "It will trigger an evidentiary review. That's where we begin cracking this open." On the table were documents, dozens of them, highlighted, indexed, annotated in bright tabs like battle flags. Ava slid one toward me. "This," she said, "is a sworn statement from a former assistant at Judge Belgrave's old firm. She confirms that your ex-husband's lawyer, Natalie Gray, was in close contact with Belgrave during your preliminary hearing. No disclosure, no recusal." "Is that illegal?" I asked. Peter nodded once. "Unethical, and under the right pressure, grounds for judicial discipline." Deendra chimed in. "We've also uncovered 3 other custody cases where rulings by Belgrave favored clients represented by Gray's firm, often in suspiciously expedited timelines." I blinked. "So this isn't just about me?" No, Ava said. It's about a pattern, and if we prove it, everything changes. Within days, their legal team launched a full motion for review. Subpoenas followed. Quiet murmurs turned into loud questions. Court clerks leaked their discomfort anonymously to legal blogs. And then came the media. Monica's viral blog post had been the match. The Leon Initiative's motion was the wildfire. Suddenly, my story had context. Names, evidence. I was no longer just the woman who lost her daughter in court. I was the mother caught in a corrupted custody system. Reporters started emailing me. Legal podcasts wanted interviews. I declined most of them. I wasn't trying to become a spectacle. But one interview, conducted with my attorney present, aired late one Friday night on a public affairs segment. They kept my voice gentle, my story grounded, my pain real, but not performative. And at the end of the segment, they showed Lily's drawing, the one she gave me before the hearing. A house with a big red heart. Stick figures holding hands. One word written in crayon, Mom. The response was instant. Letters poured in from other mothers. From strangers who had once been children caught in legal battles, from retired judges, from former caseworkers. And amid all of it was silence from Derek. Not a word, not a challenge, not a smear. The man who once crowed about my emotional instability had gone quiet. Peter took that as a sign. He's waiting, he said, because he knows the tide is turning. But it wasn't just the court or the public waking up. One night just before midnight, my phone buzzed. It was from my mother. Helen, I watched the interview. I didn't know, not all of it, I'm sorry. Just that. 7 words. I didn't reply, not yet. But I sat in the dark living room, phone in hand, thinking about how lies begin quietly and end loudly. This wasn't the end, but it was close. The truth was no longer something I whispered behind closed doors. It was out there, documented, challenging the very system that tried to erase me, and I was still standing. The courtroom was packed, not just with lawyers and family, but strangers. People who had read Monica's blog, watched the interview, followed every step of the legal fallout. Some sat quietly with notepads, others clutched tissues. A few just stared at me like they already knew how this would end. Peter stood beside me, calm as ever. Ava adjusted the folder in front of her with clinical precision. Deendra, on the bench behind us, was already scanning the opposing side for shifts in body language. Across the aisle, Derek sat alone. His lawyer, Natalie Gray, was absent. Conflict of interest, the judge had said dryly last week, announcing her suspension pending investigation. Funny how fast reputations crumble when truth starts clawing its way through the cracks. Judge Belgrave, too, had been replaced. The new judge, a woman with a composed presence and a steel gaze, took her seat as the court came to order. I have reviewed the motion to vacate the original custody ruling, she said, and the evidence of judicial misconduct is not only troubling, it's disqualifying. I couldn't breathe. Peter leaned slightly toward me, whispering, "This is where it turns." The hearing proceeded with testimonies, documents, witness statements. The assistant from Belgrave's old firm took the stand and confirmed everything. So did a court clerk who'd noticed unusual scheduling preferences. By the time Peter rested our case, the room had shifted. You could feel it in the way people sat straighter, how the judge's pen moved faster. Derek's response was defensive, scattered. His new attorney stumbled through half-baked arguments and circumstantial claims. Derek's smug confidence had evaporated. His face was pale, his shirt slightly wrinkled. It struck me, watching him flail, how different he looked now. Not powerful, not charismatic, just a man whose mask had cracked. The judge paused for a long moment before speaking. "I find that the initial custody ruling was tainted by improper influence and undisclosed professional relationships," she said. "I hereby vacate the prior order." My heart stopped. "In light of new evidence and testimony," she continued, "this court grants full physical and legal custody of Lily Rowe to her mother, Julia Rowe, effective immediately." The room didn't erupt. It exhaled. I felt Peter's hand squeeze mine. I didn't cry. Not then, I just stood taller. My spine straightened with something stronger than relief, certainty. I had done it. Outside, the air was cool. Spring had come early. Reporters gathered near the courthouse steps, but I didn't stop. I just walked straight to the car where Monica was waiting with Lily. Lily bolted from the back seat, arms wide. "Mommy," I caught her mid-leap, held her so close I could feel the rhythm of her little heart. "You're coming home," I whispered into her hair. "You're really coming home." Behind her, Monica wiped her eyes. "Did it happen?" I nodded. "It's over." That night, Lily fell asleep in my bed, her fingers curled around mine. The house was quiet, safe, ours. I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the blinking cursor on a message to my mother. I won. That's all I wrote, because what else was there to say? This wasn't just about Court, or Derek, or even my father. This was about reclaiming my voice, my power, my family. And when I looked at my reflection in the window, I didn't see the woman from the bathroom floor anymore. I saw a mother who had walked through hell and built a home from the ashes. To everyone who's ever been told they're too emotional to be trusted, remember this: your clarity is forged in that fire. If this story moved you, please share it. Comment below if you've ever had to fight for something that was yours all along. And if you're out there struggling, let this be your proof. Even in the darkest season, justice can still find you. Thank you for listening. You're not alone.